February 2005, parking lot behind an FBI field office in Los Angeles. Special Agent Jessie Murray stands over a tarp covered in garbage. Her gloves reek of rotting food. Coffee grounds stick to banana peels. Shredded paper everywhere. This is her third week sorting through the trash from a house in Downey, California, the home of Chi Mak, 64 years old, electrical engineer at Power Paragon Defense Contractor. Every Tuesday morning, the same ritual. FBI agents intercept the garbage truck, offload the bins, spread the contents, search for evidence. So far, nothing but the mundane waste of suburban life. Then Murray spots something different. Torn pieces of paper, smaller than usual. Deliberate. She slides them into a Ziploc bag, brings them to her desk, starts assembling them like a jigsaw puzzle. The pieces fit together. Chinese characters emerge. And at the bottom of one handwritten sheet, 3 letters in English. DDX. Murray's supervisor leans over her shoulder. "That's a Navy destroyer," he says. The words hang in the air. The breakthrough they've been hunting for 14 months. The second document reveals itself. Machine printed. Instructions about attending conferences, collecting information, specific technologies listed, submarine propulsion networks, systems for defending against nuclear, chemical, and biological attacks, Virginia-class submarine designs, methods for cloaking propellers, underwater weapons systems. FBI Special Agent James Gaylord examines the reassembled pages, no doubt in his mind. These are tasking lists from Chinese intelligence, a shopping list of American military secrets, found torn into pieces in a trash can outside a modest house on Blandwood Road. The spy they've been watching for over a year just made his fatal mistake. He threw away evidence he should have burned. The investigation of Chi Mak had started quietly in 2004 when the FBI received intelligence suggesting a potential espionage threat at Power Paragon, a defense contractor in Anaheim that developed advanced power systems for United States Navy warships. The company worked on classified projects involving propulsion technology for submarines and destroyers, systems that represented billions of dollars in research and gave the American military a significant technological edge over potential adversaries. Someone inside Power Paragon was suspected of passing information to China. The case landed on the desk of Special Agent James Gaylord, a counterintelligence specialist who had spent 15 years hunting foreign spies operating on American soil. Gaylord brought in agents from the Naval Criminal Investigation Service because the compromised technology directly threatened naval superiority. Together they built a surveillance operation that would eventually involve dozens of agents, thousands of hours of monitoring, and resources that tested the patience of FBI management in Washington. The target was Chi Mak, born September 28, 1940 in mainland China, immigrated to the United States from Hong Kong in 1978, naturalized citizen since 1985, model employee at Power Paragon since 1988. 17 years working on some of America's most sensitive naval technologies. 17 years of potential betrayal. Chi Mak presented the profile of successful assimilation wrapped around questions nobody had thought to ask. He stood about 5 feet 6 inches tall with graying hair and the compact energy of someone who found genuine joy in solving engineering problems. Colleagues at Power Paragon consistently described him the same way. Brilliant, helpful, enthusiastic, the engineer everyone turned to when a technical problem seemed impossible. Mack worked on 4 classified Navy contracts related to the Aegis weapons system, the integrated naval weapons system that formed the backbone of American sea power. He held security clearances that gave him access to documents stamped secret and confidential, papers that detailed propulsion systems, weapons integration, electronic warfare capabilities, future naval technologies still in the conceptual phase. His workspace at Power Paragon's facility at 901 East Ball Road in Anaheim contained stacks of technical manuals, design specifications, and classified materials he was authorized to review as part of his engineering work. Inside that workspace, away from supervision, Mac could copy anything he wanted onto computer disks. Outside work, his life followed a pattern of extreme privacy that neighbors found unusual but not necessarily suspicious. Mac lived in Downey with his wife Rebecca Laiwa Chu, 62 years old, a stern woman whose English remained limited despite 27 years in America. The couple had no children. They never socialized with neighbors, never invited anyone into their home. Rebecca left the house only with her husband, except for solitary morning walks around the block. Surveillance teams following her reported the same route every day. Same time, same expressionless face. Inside their house on Blandwood Road, hidden microphones later installed by FBI agents captured conversations that revealed the couple's true allegiances. They discussed Chinese politics with passionate intensity, praised Chairman Mao as a misunderstood genius, compared him favorably to Stalin, criticized American foreign policy with venom, all in Mandarin, all while living comfortably on max salary from the American defense contractor that trusted him with access to classified naval technologies. The contradiction seemed not to trouble them. Their frugality bordered on obsessive. They ate meals off newspapers spread on the dining room table, rolling up the papers afterward and tossing them in the trash. Every Saturday morning after playing tennis at a local park, Mac drove to a gas station where they washed their car using the station's mops and towels, provided for customer use. From there, they proceeded to a hardware store and disappeared into the lumber section for exactly 10 minutes. Never bought anything, just loitered near the 2x4s and plywood. Week after week. Same pattern. FBI surveillance teams following this bizarre routine initially suspected the lumber section visits might be dead drops, a classic espionage technique where one person leaves material in a predetermined location for another person to retrieve later. Agents staked out the hardware store from multiple angles, watched everyone who entered the lumber section around the same time as the Macs, analyzed patterns, searched for connections. After 6 weeks, they discovered the mundane truth. The lumber section offered free coffee at that particular hour on Saturday mornings. The Macs were stopping for complimentary beverages, nothing more. The surveillance continued. The apparent ordinariness of their lives became increasingly frustrating to investigators who knew something was wrong but couldn't prove it. Then came the decision to search the trash. Every Tuesday morning, the Downey sanitation truck made its rounds on Blandwood Road. FBI agents coordinated with the garbage company to intercept the truck after it collected from the Mac residence. The bags were offloaded into an FBI vehicle and transported to a secure location where junior agents, wearing gloves and nose plugs, spread the contents on tarps and meticulously examined every item, week after week. Rotting food, junk mail, newspapers, the endless detritus of suburban existence, nothing incriminating, nothing useful. Until February 2005, when Agent Jesse Murray found the torn pieces of paper with Chinese text. The discovery of the shopping list documents changed everything. Suddenly, the investigation had physical evidence directly linking Chi Mak to Chinese intelligence operations. The handwritten document listed specific naval technologies and programs: submarine propulsion systems, the DDX destroyer program, America's next-generation warship bristling with advanced weapons and stealth capabilities, technologies for defending against weapons of mass destruction, ship defense systems, torpedo countermeasures. Each item on the list corresponded to projects that Chi Mak had access to through his work at Power Paragon. The machine-printed document contained instructions written in Chinese about collecting information at defense industry conferences, engaging with other engineers, obtaining technical papers, and gathering intelligence on cutting-edge naval research. The instructions were detailed and professional, exactly what a trained intelligence service would provide to an active asset conducting collection operations. Gaylord and his team now had proof that Chi Mak was receiving tasking from handlers in China. The documents represented the intelligence equivalent of finding a smoking gun. But possession alone wasn't enough for prosecution. The FBI needed to catch Mak in the act of stealing classified information or attempting to export it to China. That meant continuing the surveillance and waiting for the spy to make his next move. In September 2004, 5 months before the trash can breakthrough, FBI teams had conducted their first black bag operation, the term for a covert entry into a suspect's home without their knowledge. It happened while Chi and Rebecca vacationed in Alaska. For weeks prior, surveillance teams had studied the patterns of everyone living on Blandwood Road. The neighbor next door woke at 3 in the morning to use the bathroom, walking past a window that offered partial view into the Mak residence. The house directly behind the Maks owned a dog prone to barking at unusual sounds. A neighbor across the street came outside at 4 every morning to smoke a cigarette on his porch. Any of these people could compromise the operation if they noticed FBI agents entering the Mak home in the middle of the night. The risk was substantial. If the entry was detected, Chi Mak would realize he was under investigation. He would cease all espionage activities. Evidence would disappear. The case would collapse. But the potential intelligence gain justified the risk. Shortly before midnight on the chosen night, Special Agent James Gaylord climbed into a Chevy minivan identical to the one Chi Mak drove. 2 other agents lay flat in the back. Only the driver remained visible from the street. The van drove from a nearby playground parking lot to Blandwood Road and stopped a short distance from the target house. Entry specialists were already inside. Gaylord opened the front door and stepped into darkness, stood motionless, waited for his eyes to adjust. The first thing he noticed was dust, thick layers covering everything, a model airplane on the coffee table, the vacuum cleaner in the hallway. Dust so pervasive it suggested the Maks never cleaned. Then he saw the documents, stacks everywhere, 2 feet high, 3 feet high, on the dining room table, by the front door, in the home office, manuals and technical papers and design specifications. The agents began photographing everything, careful to replace each document exactly as they found it. The haul was staggering. Manuals for power systems on United States Navy ships, designs for future naval technologies under development, concepts for Virginia-class submarines describing methods to cloak propellers and fire anti-aircraft weapons while submerged, documents detailing the DDX destroyer program, all of it classified, all of it in Chi Mak's home office, where it absolutely should not have been. The agents photographed hundreds of pages. They also documented tax returns, travel documents, and an address book listing contacts that included several other engineers of Chinese origin living in California. One name stood out: Greg Chung, an engineer at Boeing working on NASA's space shuttle program. The FBI would later discover that Chung was conducting his own espionage operation, passing technical documents to China for decades. Chi Mak's spy ring extended beyond his immediate family. The Mak family spy network operated through blood relationships that created natural cover for suspicious activities. Chi Mak's younger brother, Tai Mak, had moved from Hong Kong to the United States in 2001, 4 years after Britain returned the territory to Chinese control. Tai was 57 years old, worked as a broadcast engineer for Phoenix TV, a Hong Kong-based satellite television channel partially owned by the Chinese government. He lived in Alhambra, 12 miles from Chi's house in Downey, with his wife Fu Kyung Lee, age 48, and their 2 children, Billy Mak, 26, and Shirley Mak, 23. The 2 families maintained regular contact despite tension between the wives. Rebecca Mak and Phuc Lee disliked each other intensely, a fact evident in phone conversations intercepted by FBI wiretaps where each woman complained about the other to their respective husbands. Still, the families gathered every few weeks at Chinese restaurants in Alhambra's heavily Chinese-American neighborhoods. Their conversations, recorded by FBI surveillance teams following them, frequently focused on Phuc's elderly mother, who lived alone in Guangzhou, China. The family worried about her health. They relied on a family friend in China named Pu Pei Liang, described as a scholar at the Center for Asia-Pacific Studies at Sun Yat-sen University in Guangzhou, to check on her periodically. Pu's name appeared repeatedly in phone intercepts, always with a tone of deference, always in contexts that seemed to carry meanings beyond the surface conversation. FBI agents collected garbage from both households every week. The trash from Tai and Phuc's home in Alhambra joined the garbage from Chi and Rebecca's house in Downey on tarps in FBI parking lots, where junior agents sorted through the refuse looking for evidence. It was miserable work. Hot California sun, decomposing food, the stench. But this was how counterintelligence investigations worked. Not glamorous. Not exciting, just persistent, methodical, unglamorous detective work. Months passed with nothing significant. Then came the shopping list documents in February. That discovery intensified the surveillance on both families. In October 2005, FBI teams conducted another covert entry into Chi Mak's home. This time they installed a hidden camera above the dining room table where the Maks typically sat to eat their meals off newspapers. The camera's positioning offered a clear view of the table's surface and captured whatever the couple did while seated there. Days later, on a Sunday morning, the hidden camera recorded footage that would become crucial evidence at trial. Chi Mak sat at the dining room table with his laptop computer. Rebecca sat beside him. Mak inserted CDs into the laptop one at a time, copied files, talked to Rebecca about the information he was transferring. The audio was clear. Everything related to the Navy, technical papers about submarine propulsion, documents about developing quieter motors for submarines. A project Mak was leading at Power Paragon, specifications for ship defense systems, details about future destroyer designs. Mak was systematically copying classified and sensitive materials onto disks, preparing them for transfer. The camera captured everything. Combing through translated transcripts of phone conversations from the previous week, FBI analysts discovered that Chi Mak and his wife Phuc were planning to leave California for China. They had booked flights departing Los Angeles International Airport on Friday, October 28, 2005. The tickets showed they were flying Cathay Pacific to Hong Kong with a continuing connection to Guangzhou. One intercepted call particularly alarmed investigators. Tai had telephoned Pu Pei Liang in Guangzhou using a strange introduction that served as obvious code. "I am with Red Flower of North America," Tai said. No such organization existed. Tai told Pu he was coming to China for the spring trade show and bringing an assistant. Pu instructed him to call upon arriving at Guangzhou Airport using a phone card Pu had given him during a previous meeting. The date was October, not spring. Tai had no connection to any trade show. Every element of the conversation was coded. The FBI knew exactly what was happening. Tai was the courier. He was scheduled to carry classified documents from Chi Mak to Chinese intelligence handlers in Guangzhou. The trip was a dead drop in motion. The following day, another intercepted conversation between Tai and Phuc discussed the upcoming trip. Phuc asked if they would have to carry a heavy load of documents from Chi Mak like they had done on past trips. Heavy loads. Past trips. The plural told investigators this wasn't the first time. The spy ring had been successfully transferring stolen secrets for years. Tai assured his wife that this time would be easier. They only needed to transport information on disks using the computer that Pu had given them. No heavy documents, just encrypted CDs. Friday, October 28, 2005, 4:30 in the afternoon, Los Angeles International Airport. Terminal B. Tai Wang Mak and Phuc Hung Lee pushed their luggage cart toward the Cathay Pacific check-in counter. They had arrived 3 hours before their scheduled departure to Hong Kong, standard practice for international flights. They appeared relaxed. Two travelers heading home to visit family in China. Nothing unusual, nothing suspicious. They approached the security checkpoint, placed their bags on the conveyor belt for X-ray screening, removed their shoes, walked through the metal detector. On the other side, uniformed Los Angeles airport police officers waited. FBI agents stood nearby in plain clothes. The trap had been set with precision. Airport security agents flagged Tai and Phuc's luggage for secondary inspection, opened the bags, found personal items, clothing, toiletries, and a CD-ROM in an envelope tucked between layers of clothes. The disk was encrypted. Tai and Phuc were pulled aside. Agents identified themselves, produced arrest warrants. Tai Wang Mak, you are under arrest for violating export control laws and acting as an unregistered agent of a foreign government. Phuc Hung Lee, you are under arrest as an accomplice to these offenses. Hands were cuffed behind backs. Rights were read. Other passengers stopped to watch. Phones came out. Photos were taken. The scene played out in front of hundreds of witnesses as two Chinese nationals were arrested at America's second busiest airport while attempting to board an international flight carrying stolen American military secrets. That same evening, 6:47 in the evening, Downey, California, Blandwood Road. Chi Mak and Rebecca sat in their living room watching television. They had no idea what had happened at the airport 3 hours earlier. No idea that Tai and Fook were in FBI custody. No idea that agents had already cracked the encryption on the CD and discovered files containing classified information about naval technologies, submarine propulsion systems, and destroyer capabilities. All materials Chi Mak had copied from his work at Power Paragon. All materials he had given to his brother to carry to China. The doorbell rang. Chi stood and walked to the door, opened it. FBI agents stood on his porch with weapons drawn. More agents poured in through the back door simultaneously. Chi Mak, FBI. You are under arrest. Step back from the door. Chi raised his hands. Rebecca emerged from the living room. Agents ordered both to sit on the couch. They complied without resistance. No emotion, no surprise, just cold acceptance. They sat silently while agents searched the house, this time with lights on, this time with legal authority granted by arrest warrants, this time removing documents as evidence rather than photographing them for later reference. Boxes of classified materials were carried out. Computers were seized. The model airplane covered in dust was examined and left behind. Chi and Rebecca sat on their couch watching their lives dismantle. Neither spoke. Neither cried. Neither protested innocence. They simply waited for the inevitable next step: processing, interrogation, prosecution. The interrogations began immediately after the arrests. FBI Special Agent James Gaylord and investigators from the Naval Criminal Investigation Service sat across from Chi Mak in a windowless room at the FBI's Los Angeles field office. Mak was 65 years old now, a naturalized American citizen for 20 years, a man who had taken an oath of allegiance to the United States and sworn to bear arms in its defense if required. Gaylord began with the direct approach. The evidence was overwhelming. The documents found in Mac's home, the files copied onto CDs, the shopping list found torn up in his trash, the hidden camera footage showing him copying classified information, the encrypted disk seized from his brother at the airport. Cooperation would be viewed favorably. Resistance would be futile. Gaylord told Mac the FBI knew about Pupe Liang, knew about the tasking documents, knew the operation had been running for years. Mac's best option was to tell the truth. How long had he been spying? Who recruited him? What information had he passed? What damage had been done? Chi Mak sat motionless for several seconds. Then he began to talk. Later, prosecutors would characterize his statements as a confession. Defense attorneys would claim Gaylord misrepresented what Mac said. The dispute would become contentious during trial. But according to testimony from Gunnar Newquist, an NCIS investigator present during the interrogation, Mac admitted that he had been sending information about commercial and military technologies to China since the early 1980s. 23 years, nearly a quarter-century of systematic betrayal. Mac claimed most of the information came from open sources, unclassified materials, technical journals, conference papers, nothing truly secret. The investigators didn't believe him, neither would a jury. Rebecca Lewachu's interrogation followed a similar pattern. Lies, contradictions, obvious fabrications. Agents asked about the shopping list found in their trash. Rebecca claimed she had never seen the documents before, didn't know how they ended up in her garbage, suggested maybe someone planted them. The explanation was absurd. The documents were torn into small pieces, consistent with Chi Mak's pattern of shredding sensitive materials before disposal. They contained his fingerprints. Analysis of the paper and ink matched materials found elsewhere in the house. Rebecca's lies continued. She denied knowing Pupe Liang despite recorded phone conversations where she discussed him by name. Denied ever traveling to China despite passport stamps proving otherwise. Denied that Che brought work materials home despite rooms full of classified documents seized from their house. The lies were so numerous and obvious they suggested not panic but training. A trained operative knows to deny everything initially. Force the prosecution to prove every element. Never make the investigator's job easier. Rebecca played her role perfectly. So did Chi. Both maintained their composure. Both stuck to implausible cover stories. Both demonstrated the discipline of professional intelligence operatives rather than the confusion of innocent people wrongly accused. The evidence kept mounting. Wire transfer records showed payments from Chinese companies to accounts controlled by Chi Mak. The amounts were modest, a few thousand here, 5,000 there. Not the Hollywood version of espionage with millions in Swiss bank accounts, just enough to supplement income and reward cooperation. The payments always preceded trips by Thai to China, always followed by electronic communications between Chi and contacts in Guangzhou. The pattern was unmistakable. Chi stole the materials, passed them to Thai. Thai carried them to China. Contacts in China arranged payment. The cycle repeated, years of small transactions that funded what appeared to be an otherwise normal middle-class life. Forensic analysis of the encrypted CD seized at LAX revealed 300 technical documents related to United States Navy technologies, propulsion systems, weapons integration, electronic warfare capabilities, future destroyer designs, submarine quieting technology, everything on the shopping list found in Chi's trash, everything China wanted to close the technological gap with American naval forces. Damage assessments conducted by Navy intelligence analysts concluded the compromised information provided China with insights into American naval capabilities that would cost billions to replicate through indigenous research. The espionage had real consequences. Ships were potentially vulnerable. Technological advantages were diminished. American sailors faced increased risk. Prosecutors from the United States Attorney's Office for the Central District of California built their case throughout 2006. The evidence was voluminous. Hundreds of classified documents seized from the Mac homes, surveillance footage, phone intercepts, financial records, the shopping list. Expert testimony from naval engineers explaining what the compromised technology meant for American security. Grand jury proceedings produced indictments on November 15, 2005. Chi Mak was charged with conspiracy to violate export control laws, attempting to export defense articles without a license, and acting as an unregistered agent of a foreign government. Each count carried decades in federal prison. His brother Tai Mak faced identical charges as the courier who attempted to transport the stolen materials out of the country. Fook Hing Lee was charged as an accomplice and conspirator. Rebecca Laiwa Chiu was charged with acting as an unregistered foreign agent, acknowledging her supporting role in the espionage operation. Their son, Billy Mack, 26 years old, was later added to the indictment for making false statements to federal investigators and acting as a courier on previous trips. 5 members of one extended family, all facing prosecution as Chinese spies. The family spy ring had been completely exposed. Jury selection for Chi Mak's trial began on March 27, 2007, United States District Court in Santa Ana, California. Judge Cormac Carney presiding. The trial would last 6 weeks. Prosecutors faced the challenge of making complex technical espionage understandable to 12 ordinary citizens. The defense strategy focused on arguing that Chi Mak was a loyal American and the government was overstating the significance of the documents. Lead defense attorney Ronald Kay portrayed his client as an enthusiastic engineer whose passion for technology led him to collect interesting technical papers, not a trained spy engaged in systematic theft of classified information. The shopping list found in the trash, Kay argued, was something Mack had found inside a book on Chinese medicine that his nephew Billy brought back from China. Maybe somebody was trying to take advantage of Billy. Maybe the whole thing was a setup. The documents Chi copied to CDs weren't classified at all, Kay claimed. They were technical papers available in the open literature. Any engineer could access them at conferences or through professional journals. Chi Mak never intended to help China. He never meant to hurt America. He loved this country. He was being persecuted for his ethnicity in a modern witch hunt against Chinese Americans working in sensitive industries. Prosecutors demolished the defense arguments piece by piece. FBI Special Agent James Gaylord testified about the year-long surveillance operation, described following Chi Mak to work at Power Paragon, watching him copy documents, tracking his meetings with family members, collecting garbage week after week, finding the shopping list torn into pieces. Gaylord walked the jury through the investigation step by step, made it personal, made it real. Gunnar Newquist from NCIS testified about Mack's post-arrest statements, where he admitted sending information to China since the early 1980s. admitted receiving tasking from contacts in Guangzhou, admitted that Pu Pei Liang was his handler, not just a family friend checking on Folk's elderly mother. Nyquist's testimony was devastating. Naval experts testified about the classified nature of the documents found in Mac's home and on the CDs seized from Thai at LAX. Explained that the propulsion technology for Virginia-class submarines represented decades of research and billions of dollars in development. Described how cloaking propellers from sonar detection gave American submarines a critical advantage that China desperately wanted to neutralize, made clear that the stolen information wasn't publicly available despite defense claims. The courtroom filled with technical diagrams, security classifications, damage assessments. The weight of evidence became overwhelming. During 3 days on the witness stand, Chi Mak conceded lying to investigators about family and friends in China, conceded the number of trips he made there, conceded keeping classified documents at home violated company policy. But he maintained he never intended to hurt America, never meant to break any laws, just an engineer fascinated by technology. The jury didn't believe him. His lies during interrogation undermined credibility. The hidden camera footage showed him deliberately copying files while discussing concealing the activity. The shopping list found torn up in his trash matched perfectly with documents found in his home. The timing of his brother's airport arrest carrying the encrypted CDs was too coincidental. On May 10, 2007, after deliberating for 3 days, the jury returned guilty verdicts on all counts. Chi Mak convicted of conspiracy to violate export control laws. Guilty, attempting to export defense articles to China without authorization. Guilty, acting as an unregistered agent of a foreign government. Guilty. Mak sat motionless as the verdict was read. No reaction, no emotion. Rebecca sat in the gallery behind him. She too showed nothing. The family spy ring had been convicted. The guilty verdict against Chi Mak triggered a cascade of plea agreements from his co-conspirators. Facing the same overwhelming evidence, none of the others wanted to risk trial. Tai Wang Mak pleaded guilty to conspiracy charges in exchange for prosecutors recommending a reduced sentence. He admitted acting as a courier, transporting stolen documents on multiple trips to China over several years, delivering them to Pu Pei Liang in Guangzhou, receiving payment through wire transfers disguised as business transactions. Fu Kyung Lee pleaded guilty to being an unregistered foreign agent. She admitted knowing about the espionage operation, participating in coded phone conversations, and helping to transport materials. Billy Mack pleaded guilty to making false statements to federal agents and acting as a courier on at least 2 previous trips when he was younger. Rebecca Laiwa Chu, Chi's wife, pleaded guilty to being an unregistered foreign agent. She admitted supporting her husband's espionage activities, maintaining contacts with handlers in China, and participating in the conspiracy. All 5 members of the family spy ring now stood convicted in federal court. Sentencing would determine how much of their lives they would spend in prison. March 24, 2008. United States District Court in Santa Ana. Judge Cormac Carney sat behind the bench preparing to sentence Chi Mak. The courtroom gallery was packed. Reporters, Navy officials, families of the convicted. Sentencing in espionage cases sent messages far beyond the defendant standing before the court. The punishment needed to reflect the seriousness of betraying national security, needed to deter others who might consider selling America's secrets, needed to provide justice for the damage done. Mack stood as Judge Carney addressed him directly. "I believe you betrayed the United States," Carney said. His voice was measured but firm. The judge cited the evidence, the classified documents, the shopping list, the encrypted CDs, the years of systematic theft, the damage to national security. Chi Mak had occupied a position of trust, held security clearances, sworn oaths, then violated everything for the benefit of a foreign government. Before imposing sentence, Judge Carney allowed Mak to speak. Chi Mak addressed the court for several minutes. "I never intended to violate any law at all," he said. "I never intended to hurt this country. I love this country. I still hope for justice." The statement rang hollow after months of evidence proving deliberate, systematic espionage spanning decades. Judge Carney sentenced Chi Mak to 292 months in federal prison, 24 years and 4 months, plus a $50,000 fine. Mak would be 89 years old if he survived to his release date, effectively a life sentence. The other members of the spy ring received sentences reflecting their roles. Tai Wang-mak received 10 years in federal prison for acting as the primary courier. Fuk-Hing Lee received 3 years, followed by deportation to China. Billy Mak received 3 years, followed by deportation. Rebecca Laiwa Chiu received 3 years in federal prison, followed by deportation to China. The family that had operated as a coordinated espionage network was dismantled. Parents separated from children. Brothers separated from brother. Wives sent back to the country they had served as spies. The consequences were severe, permanent, irreversible. Chi Mak was transferred to the Federal Correctional Institution at Lompoc, California, a low-security prison near Vandenberg Air Force Base on the central California coast. There he would serve his sentence among other inmates convicted of white-collar crimes, fraud, and nonviolent offenses. A Chinese-born naturalized American citizen spending the rest of his life in prison for spying against the country he had sworn allegiance to. Defense attorney Ronald Kay filed an appeal within 10 days of sentencing. He accused prosecutors of being overly harsh, argued the evidence was circumstantial, claimed Chi Mak never actually succeeded in exporting truly classified information. The appeals failed. Every court that reviewed the case upheld the conviction and sentence. The FBI's investigation didn't end with the Mak convictions. The address book seized from Chi's house during the initial black bag operation had contained names of other engineers of Chinese origin working in sensitive industries. One name led to Greg Chung, a Boeing engineer who had worked on NASA's space shuttle program for 30 years. FBI investigators opened a new case, conducted surveillance, searched Chung's home and found over 300,000 pages of documents related to space shuttle technology, military aircraft, rocket designs, and other sensitive materials. In 2009, Greg Chung became the first American convicted in a jury trial on charges of economic espionage under the Economic Espionage Act of 1996. He received 15 years in federal prison. The investigation of Chi Mak had exposed not just one family spy ring, but led to uncovering another long-term Chinese intelligence operation targeting American aerospace technology. The counterintelligence success validated the FBI's investment of resources in the Mak surveillance, despite early frustrations when evidence seemed elusive. One shredded shopping list found in a trash can had cracked open multiple espionage networks. Chi Mak remained incarcerated at FCI Lompoc for 14 years. Prisoner number 04409-048. He maintained his innocence throughout his imprisonment despite overwhelming evidence of guilt. Gave occasional interviews to journalists where he claimed persecution, insisted the documents weren't classified, suggested he had been targeted because of his ethnicity. The narrative never changed. In 2014, New Yorker magazine published a detailed investigation into the Mak case. Reporter Udajit Bhattacharjee traveled to Lompoc and interviewed Mak in person. The convicted spy, now in his 70s, remained animated when discussing technical engineering problems. "When I talk technical, I get excited," Mak told the reporter, grinning. But when asked about the shopping list found in his trash, his demeanor changed, fidgety, grim. He claimed he found it inside a book Billy brought from China. Maybe somebody was trying to take advantage of Billy. When pressed about who sent the list, Mak suggested Pu Pei Liang, but he never explained why his Chinese handler would send him a shopping list of intelligence targets if Mak wasn't an active spy. The interview revealed an old man clinging to an implausible cover story even after conviction and years in prison. The discipline of a trained operative, or the delusion of someone unable to accept reality. On October 31, 2022, Chi Mak died in prison at the Federal Correctional Institution in Lompoc. He was 82 years old. Cause of death was not publicly disclosed. He had served 14 years of his 24-year sentence. The man who had stolen American naval secrets for China, who had compromised classified submarine technology, who had operated a family espionage network for decades, died behind bars. No fanfare, no headlines, just a brief notation in federal prison records. His wife Rebecca had been deported to China years earlier after serving her sentence. Chi Mak had been released and deported. Fook and Billy were back in China. The family reunited in the country they had served as spies. Only Chi remained in America, dying in the federal prison system that had held him accountable for his betrayal. The damage he caused can never be fully quantified. Naval intelligence assessments remain classified, but experts agree that the propulsion technology, submarine quieting systems, and destroyer capabilities Mac passed to China accelerated Chinese naval development by years and cost American taxpayers billions in compromised advantages. The Chi Mak case stands as a watershed moment in FBI counterintelligence operations against Chinese espionage. The investigation demonstrated that patient, methodical surveillance work combined with traditional investigative techniques like trash searches could defeat sophisticated intelligence operations. The breakthrough came not from high-tech cyber monitoring or satellite surveillance, but from an FBI agent sorting through garbage on a tarp in a parking lot. The shredded shopping list in the trash can changed everything. Without that discovery in February 2005, the case might never have developed sufficient evidence for prosecution. Chi Mak might have continued stealing secrets until retirement. The family spy ring might still be operating today. The case also highlighted patterns in Chinese intelligence operations that informed future investigations. The use of family members as couriers, the long-term cultivation of assets working in sensitive positions, the patient collection of technical information over decades, the modest financial payments that avoided drawing attention, the reliance on shared ethnicity and cultural connections to recruit and maintain agents. These patterns helped the FBI identify and investigate other suspected Chinese intelligence operations, leading to numerous additional arrests and convictions in the years following the Mac case. The story of Chi Mak and his family spy ring reveals how small mistakes undo even well-planned espionage operations. A single shredded document improperly disposed of. Pieces of paper torn too large to destroy the text completely. A trash bin placed at the curb on Tuesday morning, never suspecting that FBI agents would sort through every item looking for evidence. That one mistake exposed 20 years of spying, cost 5 people their freedom, ended with an old man dying in prison far from the China he had served. The case reminds us that espionage isn't just the stuff of thriller novels and Hollywood movies. It's real. It happens in suburban houses in Downey and Alhambra. It involves engineers going to work in Anaheim and copying files onto disks. It unfolds at LAX, where couples try to board flights carrying stolen secrets. It's prosecuted in federal courtrooms where juries of ordinary citizens must weigh evidence and determine guilt. And it ends in federal prisons where convicted spies serve decades behind bars, their lives defined forever by their choice to betray the country that had welcomed them and trusted them with access to sensitive national security information. Chi Mak made that choice. He paid the price. The shopping list he tore up and threw away became the evidence that destroyed him. If you found this deep dive into the Chi Mak spy case compelling, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more true Cold War espionage documentaries. The research for these videos takes weeks, combing through FBI records, court documents, and investigative journalism to bring you the most accurate and detailed accounts of real spy cases. Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts on the case. How did a family operate an espionage ring for so long undetected? What other Cold War spy cases would you like to see covered? Your engagement helps the channel grow and supports the creation of more content exposing the hidden world of espionage. The story of intelligence operations continues today with new cases emerging regularly. Stay informed, stay engaged, and remember that the protection of America's secrets depends on the vigilance of investigators like FBI Special Agent James Gaylord, who spent over a year following Chi Mak, watching his every move, sorting through his garbage, building a case one piece of evidence at a time until the truth was undeniable. Justice was served. The spy ring was broken. The secrets were protected. This is the real world of counterintelligence. Subscribe and stay tuned for the next investigation.